If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
LeBron James, of all people. Not someone I expected to talk about to start a Knicks podcast, but we now have to talk about it because LeBron, Lakers star, shocked much of the NBA world when he announced that he would consider retirement this offseason. The comments came after the Lakers were swept by the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. Meanwhile, Vegas is now posting odds for where LeBron James could land if he ends up leaving the Lakers this offseason. Some looking at LeBron making these comments, suggesting that maybe this is him trying to maybe finagle his way out of Los Angeles. And so far, according to Vegas, the team with the best chance to land the king is the New York Knicks. Took me by surprise when I saw it cross over this week, Tommy. First of all, let's go into the should question. Should the Knicks consider trading for LeBron James at this moment in time?
Yeah, I don't think so. Just in terms of the bigger kind of issue here, in terms of Vegas odds. So, as someone who's covered the league for a while and wrote for a various number of outlets, a lot of these Bet Online and some other, Vegas sports books have these big blast emails. And I'm on the receiving end of, rookie of the year odds. And, Kyrie Irving has demanded a trade. Who's the team he's most likely to land on odds and all these other stuff. The couple things to keep in mind. One, they limit the amount you can bet. So, you may say, well, I'm familiar with I know somebody who knows somebody in the front office. I'm going to bet. I know that KD is going to sign with Brooklyn, so I'm going to bet $3 million on the Nets and double, make a quick $6 million if I'm wealthy, or $10,000 or whatever you have. The issue is they limit the max number you can bet, so it's usually like $50, $20, sometimes $100, something along those lines. So this is not something they put a great deal of time into because you're not gonna
be able to retire from your job and winning on
100%. And the sports books do this because they have limited exposure, and it also generates some potentially some traffic to their site. For instance, right. They'll send me the odds and say, if you list the odds, please, our Twitter handle is at BetOG online, or bet, Caesars at Vegas.com, whatever the case is. So they want to generate some money, some action, some buzz around their particular sports book. So if you're doing that, would you say that LeBron has the greatest odds to wind up with the Minnesota Timberwolves or the New York Knicks? Which one's going to generate the most buzz? Which one's going to get podcasts talking and websites clicking and all this other stuff? So that's a big factor into that. So I say all that to say I don't think there is any chance LeBron James ends up in New York. If you have an opportunity to trade for LeBron James, absolutely you should. I understand he's going to be 39, in December, but he's still, one of the, 10, 15 best players in the NBA. If you had to start a franchise, there's no doubt that you would want LeBron James in your team. But I think there's a very, 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 very minuscule chance that he considers being traded. And I don't think the Knicks have the assets the Lakers would want if they were going to trade him, because I think it would be a complete rebuild scenario. So, yeah, that's kind of where I land on the whole LeBron thing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of should the Knicks trade for LeBron, I'm actually going to say no. I don't know if it makes sense for them. I don't think this is necessarily the best. It's a good fit, I think, in terms of next year. If I can have LeBron James next season as opposed to Julius Randle and or RJ Barrett, I'd rather have LeBron James, of course. I think in terms of the ceiling LeBron puts on this team, I just don't know how high it is given what I saw from this postseason and this regular season from LeBron James. LeBron is still a spectacular player, still a top 10 player around that range in the NBA. But as we saw when they played against a team like the Denver Nuggets, he couldn't carry a pretty good Lakers team. That team that was not the team that we saw earlier this year. We saw a team that kind of developed into a pretty good team. He couldn't carry that team against a full deep roster with a mega star like Jokic in the NBA conference finals against the Denver Nuggets. We saw during his postseason where there were games where a lot of it was AD leading the charge and LeBron kind of playing second fiddle and him making clutch shots, making big plays down the stretch. Austin Reeves making big shots. So I think we kind of saw, the ceiling for what a team can do with LeBron James as your best player at this point, unless you have a super team. I think that it's probably like conference finals. Maybe you don't get swept. Maybe with the Knicks, you could win some games. But I don't know if you win a championship with LeBron. And that's my problem, because if you're trading for LeBron, then you're talking about a really 1 year window, probably maybe 2 year window. I don't know.
I will just say this: the last time we saw LeBron James play was an elimination game. He had a 40-point triple double.
He did.
So and I think LeBron will age. It's been proven. He's nobody's ever done what he's done at age 38. I think age 39. Listen, the issue with LeBron is at this point he's a 16-game play. You're gonna sit him out frequently during the regular season. You're gonna manage his minutes. One of the other questions you have queued up here is, do you think he'll retire? My answer to that is no.
I don't think he will either. Yeah,
I doubt he'll even seriously consider it. I think he's got at least 2 years left. He's talked about wanting to play with Bronny. I could see a couple scenarios. I wouldn't be shocked if he took a year off. Watched Bronny play at USC for a year. Watched his son Bryce play in high school. Spent some time with his daughter, take her to the park and whatnot, and then come back for a year for Bronny's rookie season. But I think the more likely scenario is he has off-season surgery. Another thing to keep in mind, he struggled a bit this postseason, but he was also humbled, clearly limited, due to the injury.
yeah, for sure.
So he has off-season surgery, missed maybe the first 2 months of the season, first 3 months of the season, come back, skip back-to-backs, and basically fine-tune for the playoffs. My thinking, just as far as Knicks related, was if you have Brunson and LeBron with a decent supporting cast, you have a chance again in a wide open East to make some noise. I would never count out LeBron. I think when you have a player like Brunson, that would give you two of maybe the 10 best players. If you could take any players starting today, let's say you could have any 10 players in the NBA in a postseason series. Brunson and LeBron would be in that category. They'd be in the conversation. They'd be first picks essentially.
Definitely.
So if you have those two guys, depends on what you'd have to give up to Lakers. Brunson's really the only untouchable in my mind, but if you have to give up all your depth, then it probably makes it counterproductive. But again, I don't think that's much of a possibility. But I do think LeBron has plenty of gas left in the tank. Relative, of course, he's never going to be the 2011-12 LeBron that could simply dominate and take over a series. But again, I think he could be one of the best players on the championship team. So you have a guy like that in Brunson. If you could add a guy like that in LeBron, and get lucky on kind of the tertiary pieces, somebody steps up and has a big series, then you kind of put yourself in the conversation, I'd say.
I see that, but again, look at this series. He did have that 40-point game to close the series, which was back against the wall, or everything on the line. In his head, maybe he was thinking this may be my last game ever. I mean, I don't know, but like, I had to cross his mind if he's talking about it in the post game. And that was the performance he put on. He's an all-time great. That wasn't that surprising. But those other games before that, he put up good games. They were not bad games, but he clearly seemed outgunned. He seemed a little old, and one of the things that scares me the most right now is injuries. Like, we've seen LeBron deal with these injuries more and more as he's gone on. It's weird. It's almost like him as a player hasn't diminished, but we're really seeing the age more in his health than it is really what he actually does on the court. He can still, jump from the dotted and throw down a tomahawk like he's 25 years old. He could still, guard up against Jamal Murray, mano a mano on certain possessions and play all NBA defense. It's not necessarily the actual player. It's the injury. It's when he lands, will he twist his foot? If he gets hit the wrong way, will he miss a couple weeks, miss a month? Like, that is where the concern I would have is, if you're talking about truly only a 1 or 2 year window with someone who is that injury prone, that is the risk I would have, because I think that it would cost significant capital. Because for me, if I'm the Lakers, like, when you're getting LeBron James, yes, you're getting an older player, but you're also getting like a megastar, an icon in not just basketball, but in sports. So there's a tax that goes on to that too. Forget about, okay, I'm only getting a 1 year rental. You're getting one of the most iconic players in basketball. And now he's coming to your city. He's going to be playing in your arena. It's going to be now your revenue, your ticket prices get to go back up, which, James Dolan would love. So if I'm the Lakers, Randall is not enough. I don't even know if RJ Barrett is enough. I don't know if 2 first-round picks is enough. Like, I think that you're going to have to pay a hefty price for LeBron if he were to say, I want to be traded, and I'm not paying that from the Knicks. I'm sorry. Not for a guy who I think is going to be good for 1 or 2 years.
I think I disagree with that. I think if he wants to stick around, it'll be better than you get a little bit longer window. But that being said, as far as the Lakers in terms of their leverage, they would have zero essentially because LeBron would say maybe he makes more than one team, a couple teams, but it's not like you can 29 teams are open in the bidding. He's only going to accept a trade to a handful of teams, so that might limit what the Lakers could request.
But I do think the Lakers are going to try to recoup a lot of these assets that they lost. Remember, they made that Anthony Davis trade. They made that Russell Westbrook trade. Like, they essentially have no draft picks they can trade up until 2029. Like, I think that if you're saying, okay, we're going to trade arguably the greatest player of all time, a guy who we both agree can still play at an extremely high level, I'm going to make sure I get a lot of those assets back. And they got quite a lot that they lost. So I don't want to be, helping the Lakers' future in hopes that LeBron can get me a title in 1 or 2 years. I will say this, though, and one of the questions I have about what a package would look like for LeBron. So I was saying, I think that would be a lot. I mean, do you think it would be less than that? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's tough to figure again because there's limited options. Let me kind of twist it on you a little bit, EJ.
Yeah.
I think the Lakers need somebody who's going to produce in the regular season. My thinking, as far as LA related, was would they trade for Randall if they kept LeBron? What do you think about if they sign and trade Rui Hachimura, Malik Beasley, Vanderbilt, and a first round pick for Randall and Fournier? Which side says no?
I think the Knicks say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Knicks say no because I think if they're trading Randall, it actually was I don't know if it was a podcast, but I saw, I guess, Michael Scotto, Hoops Hype, was with Bagley and Bondi. I think they had mentioned how they were talking about if they see a Randall trade happening, it would be for him in a package for a star, which is kind of how I've always seen it, even though I would not be opposed to the scaling down a little bit just to get Randall kind of off the team. I think that's very important at this point. But it just doesn't seem like that's the way the Knicks see him. So I think the Knicks would know because I think they would think that they should get more for a guy who was a All NBA third team this year, a second team All NBA guy a couple of years ago. But like we've talked about it before on this podcast, Randall is such a confounding player because I've never seen a guy who produces so well in the regular season. Has had 2 out of the last 3 seasons, 2 absolute monster seasons offensively. Apparently have such little value in the NBA. I understand it somewhat, but it seems a little extreme. Like, we've had other temperamental stars who, when they get traded, the teams are able to get back decent value for him. I mean, he's not Rasheed Wallace. He's not a guy who's getting 50 technical fouls. I mean, yeah, he's temperamental, and yeah, he could be a bad teammate at times, but this is a guy who's giving you 25 and 10 and 5 assists, and I don't know. So it's not a terrible trade. The fact that I can, offload Fournier would be great, and I get a first round pick back. Another thing I think about, the weird thing about that too, is what are you doing with those forwards? Because Rui comes in, right, and now you got Vanderbilt, and then Obi Toppin's still on the team. Are they fighting for the starting spot at the 4? How much am I paying Rui? I guess would also be a question.
I think it just gives you greater flexibility. Again, in terms of draft picks, you can it would either be the Lakers 2029 pick, which could be a great pick. No LeBron will be gone, Anthony Davis will be gone. They've gutted their future picks, or the Lakers can also trade the 17th overall pick from this coming draft. After they make the selection, they could trade it. And then you just have some flexible pieces. You can include Malik Beasley in the deal if you want to get him back in the deal. Max Christie. You can kind of have the Lakers throw in these ancillary pieces, and then you can flip them for future draft picks, or just kind of just have guys on the roster. Vanderbilt's on a contract that pays him less than $5 million. If you can get Rui at a relatively cheap contract, that's a team-friendly contract. And he also played really well in the postseason. Shot 60%.
Rui, yeah, he played great in the postseason. Absolutely,
played really well. I mean, you factor in his efficiency in the postseason versus Randall's. Again, there's no comparing the players. Randall's infinitely better regular season player, but again, I can't help but think. Are you going to be confident game 1 of the first round series in 2024 if Randall's on the team? Like, are you going to be confident he's going to play well even if he's fully healthy, even if he has a great regular season? And that's the best case scenario, that he has a great regular season. What if he struggles in the regular season? I just don't know if you can risk taking that team in a wide open East into the postseason. So those are the kind of thoughts. We'll be talking about Randall trades.
Yeah.
I broke it down. I wrote about a potential trade for Pascal Siakam in the newsletter today, along with this Lakers trade. And there's going to be more down the pipeline, a lot to discuss. But I just think you kind of have to think outside the box a little bit. And the more I think about it, the body language, the lack of energy and effort defensively, really frustrating. And I just don't know if you can enter a season with Tibbs and Randall, and something you've talked about. And so if you're going to trade Randall, and if you're going to keep Tibbs, and that means you're probably going to, if you're not going to bring both back, you're going to trade one. I don't know what the best package you can get for Randall. All it takes is one team to give you basically his regular season worth. That's why I think a team like the Lakers would be perfect, because they need somebody just chew up minutes in the regular season and be a star in the regular season, and that's exactly what Randall can do. And then they have LeBron, and then he can take a back seat to AD and LeBron in the postseason and just kind of be the third wheel and get in where he fits in. He can be a starter in the regular season. So I know that that's not an ideal package for Knicks fans, and you think, like, he's an all-star, an all-NBA player on a relatively team-friendly contract. Is that the best you can get? I don't know, but you have to look at all the, can you parcel out that trade into a 3-team deal? Maybe you flip Rui, in the sign and trade along with the first round pick for another player that's a better fit or maybe an improvement. But again, I could say, well, Karl Anthony Towns is much better than Rui Hachimura, but he's going to make $50 million a year.
There's not a perfect solution. There's no silver bullet with this thing.
There's no perfect player. Because if you had the perfect player, then you wouldn't want to trade him. But you're going to trade a flawed player in Randall. That's amazing in the regular season, struggles in the postseason, and there's some other stuff there that he could regress for maybe a combination of moderately priced upside assets or an overvalued star that's going to potentially cripple your cap. So there's no perfect answer out there. So that's why it's worth kind of discussing and hashing these ideas out.
No, it is. And to me, like, the way I've seen the Randall trade, I feel like it's going to have to take a star saying they want to go to New York, and a team willing to act. We have to say, all right, well, this is where they want to go, and they're really hell-bent on making sure we send them there. And if we want to be able to still be competitive, and the other thing is that team has to also still want to be competitive, at least in the regular season, and still want to make the playoffs. And
that star has to have an affordable contract. For instance, if Karl Anthony Towns was at the Yankee game 2 days ago, says, I'm coming to New York, the Knicks are going to be like, okay, thanks, but no thanks. Like, again, we talked about, if Zach LaVine says, trade me to New York, I only want to go to New York. He's an all-star. He's a superstar. But does that make sense for the Knicks? So it's complicated.
Yeah, it's funny. Seeing Karl Anthony Towns at that Yankee game, he was clearly doing the Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
He's on the Donovan Mitchell, strategy guide. So I'm like, Did he see how the Donovan Mitchell thing ended? Like, he may get his behind sent to Indiana doing all this politicking in New York. Donovan Mitchell had the Coney Island, Brooklyn Cyclones bobblehead day, and then now Karl Anthony Towns saying, "Hey, let me put on a Yankee hat and a Yankee jersey and remind people, hey, I love the Yankees. I'm from the area. Let me throw out the first pitch." Because I'm like, why is Karl Anthony Towns throwing out the first pitch? Like, who's even thinking about Karl Anthony Towns in New York, except for, I guess, apparently Karl Anthony Towns, and maybe this could be where he can go. So he's definitely on the promotional campaign. I don't know how well it's going to work. It didn't work out for Spider Mitchell, as close as that came, and I doubt it'll work for Karl Anthony Towns. Though it appears that there are people who think that will happen at some point, which we talked about playing this show. This Knicks conversation with all-season trade, with what they do with Randall, is going to be interesting. And one last thing on the Randall thing. The other aspect as well is whatever trade you're making, like, for instance, the Pascal Siakam trade, or how I mentioned with the Rui trade, like, then there's still this thing of what you do with Obi Toppin. Like, that's still a part of this. Like in my opinion, I would hope to trade Randall. Now, again, it might not be a perfect player out there. If you're trading Randall for a comparable star or a better star, I hope it would be for a guy who doesn't play power forward, so you can start Obi Toppin, who's going to be making relatively affordable money before his contract extension comes up, and you can put him in the starting lineup. But if you're trading for Pascal Siakam, if you're trading for Rui Hachimura, these are guys who Pascal Siakam absolutely starting over Obi Toppin, and Rui could even start over Obi.
That's why the Rui thing kind of intrigues me a little bit, because maybe Rui would be comfortable being the sixth man, or being that part of that, because he'd become, obviously, up until the final game of the Lakers postseason run, he was operating off the bench. You bump Obi up, and maybe you split their minutes, 20, 25, 23, 24, 24.
Yeah.
Who's ever playing well finishes the game, like they both, play complementary roles. That's why I think there would be some intrigue there. But because to your point, if you trade Randall, for what position do they need other than power forward if they are trading Randall? They're obviously not going to trade for a point guard. Shooting guard, I don't want to say, I love Grimes' upside. You have him locked into a rookie contract. You have IQ to back up both those spots. Small forward, are you going to trade for a starting small forward? Then what do you do with RJ Barrett? A center, DeAndre Ayton, but then you got to send out Mitchell Robinson in the deal. I
don't know what I would do if they trade for DeAndre Ayton. I don't know. I'd be curled up in the fetal position for like 2 months until opening night. If I gotta look at that starting line, but DeAndre Ayton's on. DeAndre Ayton, I don't want anything to do with DeAndre Ayton. No.
Oh, okay.
I think that I question. He's extremely talented offensively. I don't know. I'm gonna take that back. I cannot say extremely talented. I think he has some talent offensively. I think he's deceived defensively, and there's something missing with, I think, the basketball makeup and character that I just think would be a disaster in New York. I would not touch him.
I think he's a little bit of a buy low guy. Like I think that the Suns have soured on him. But to your point, there's probably a reason that
I would mean buying low. It would feel better if the contract wasn't so expensive. Like he just signed that massive extension, and and that's why when they try to put him on other teams, I'm just like, good luck to that team. That to me, like I almost would prefer him to go someplace like Utah or someplace where it's gonna be super low stakes, and perhaps he can kind of find himself. Be that true number 1 or 2 option wherever he wants to go. I think that's how he sees himself, and maybe that's how he kind of regenerates his career. But if he's going to a team that's trying to get back to the playoffs, trying to win a championship, and he's seen as again another third banana, like I think that would end terribly.
I would just say that while he did sign that contract, it's not as bad as the other guys. Like he's making around 32.5 next year, then 34, then 35.5. So it's not the $50 million, 50 to 60 million that Carlos Towns are looking. So it's a little bit more moderate, but I agree. It's not a value contract. It's not a team contract.
And it's funny, the Knicks have so many contracts now that are so great that like it kind of skews how you view other players in their contracts. You look at them and you're just like, oh, I'd never touch that guy. It's like, well, I mean, nobody else in the NBA has a player that's a 2-time All NBA guy making like 28 million, 27 million. Exactly. No other team has a point guard who did what Brunson did in the postseason and in the regular season, making 26, 27 million. That doesn't exist.
So there were 20 teams that made the playoffs / play-in. The Knicks are the only one that don't have a player making above 27 million.
There you go.
Every other team in the NBA that made either the playoff or the play, not just the playoffs and the play-in, has at least one player. Most have multiple players making more than 30 million. Knicks don't have anybody making more than 27.
That's going to be a big important thing about when the Knicks make a trade, if they do make one, is jumping into that super max conversation. Like this is something the Knicks just haven't been involved in since essentially Melo left. And now if you make a trade for one of these guys, that's going to be where you're going to be going. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.